Since becoming a mortgage advisor in 2020, I've been asked a lot of questions, mainly obviously about mortgages and sometimes about the buying process. But this is the first time people have asked me, what should I ask an estate agent? What should I ask a solicitor? And they actually had a pen and paper and wanting to write it down. And at first I was going to say, you know what, that's not my area. And then I thought, "Do you know what? Why I understand how it works and they don't. And I wanted to sort of provide them with the best service that I could. So we had a really long talk about all the things that I could think of that you would ask them and why. And I thought back about when I was 22 and I bought my first property, and I would have loved to have known what kind of questions to ask an estate agent. And then the whole buying process, as far as conveyancers, property solicitors are concerned, can be quite confusing as well. So I've made this cheat sheet that you can get in the Get Mortgage Ready Club as a free resource. And I'm going to go through it now so you can actually, I'm going to share my screen and we're actually going to talk through. I've called it the cheat sheet and I hope you actually, it helps you. So if we're going to start off with the estate agent. Now, obviously, when you're value looking round the property and things like that, but before that, when you're viewing the property, there are things when you're looking for the property on, Rightmove, Zoopla, or wherever you look. There's a lot of things to bear in mind, and you can online find out a lot of information. Like you can actually see if it's sold before and what price it was sold at, if it was listed before and it was taken off, and all of that kind of stuff. So I do all of that research. I do comparisons to other properties that are similar on the road and things like that, and I'd get that. But this is what you can actually ask the estate agent. Now, I won't go through every single question because obviously you will be able to get this free resource anyway, but I'll just talk through some of the points and we'll go from there. So, first, when it comes to about the property, a really good one is, why is the seller moving? Because, they may not be 100% honest with you, but it's good to get an idea if you can find out how long the property's been on the market. You can see this online, but you can also ask also about the price being reduced. So these are questions you can ask the estate agent, but you can also see if you can find out yourself, and it's a good thing to know. When it's coming to completion and negotiation, how much depending on how much interest, how many people have been making offers on the property and things like that, make you feel comfortable or not about giving negotiating a lower price. I always negotiate a discount when I'm buying property, but everybody's different, right? I think, if you don't ask, you don't get. That's my opinion. But you can ask how many other offers they are. Is the seller chain free? What that actually means is, are they actually buying somewhere else? Because if they're buying somewhere else, then they're in a chain, and the person they're buying from might also be buying, and it goes up and up and up. And what ends up happening is the first time buyer has to wait ages because of the chain. So if you've got someone that is chain free, then the likelihood is you're going to complete a lot quicker. Um, that's all about speed, certainty, and then obviously if a link in the chain breaks, that's what we mean by certainty. It may mean that the whole of the chain collapses, and so if it's chain free, it's a lot less stress. And then it's all about the process. You have to ask them, how do they want you to submit an offer? Does it have to be in writing? Does it have to be verbal? Does it have to come from your mortgage advisor? Does it have to be backed up with a decision in principle, an application in principle, or a mortgage in principle, and things like that? So it's always good to know. My top tip when you are doing a DIP, which is a decision in principle, do it for what you want to pay for the property, not your maximum, because if you show them the maximum you can pay, then you lose your negotiating power. So if you need a mortgage advisor to do it for a lower amount because you've got a budget, or you've looked at other properties on the road and you're like, it isn't actually worth my maximum, then by all means speak to me or another mortgage advisor, and they'll go through how to do a lower one. Right, so good old mortgage advisor. I did have someone quizzing me about how long I'd been a mortgage advisor, how many mortgages I've done, my experience when it comes to this type of mortgage and that type of mortgage. And I thought, do you know what? The most important thing when you're asked speaking to a mortgage advisor is to find out if they're registered on the Financial Conduct Authority. So if they've got a registered reference number and that kind of thing, that is really important. So that's what I'd say when it comes to that. When you're looking at mortgage advisor, yeah, as I said, it's all that experience, but it's also the affordability. Um, how much can you borrow? How much can you afford? We've talked a lot about what those differences are, but it's best to know that up front. When it comes to deposits and rates, what's the comparison? So sometimes you may not want to put your full deposit in, you might want to put part. So it's good to ask the mortgage advisor, if I put in 20%, what sort of interest rate would it be? It's all about the loan to rate bands. So the loan to rate is it's the loan, so how much you're planning to borrow compared to the price of the property. So that's also worth asking either myself or if you decide to work with another mortgage advisor. Um, I do a lot of work with my clients on their credit. So when we look at their credit reports, I give them a few tips on how they can improve it. And if this is right at the beginning when they're looking for a property, it gives them time to sort of make these fixes and things like that. It's always worth asking how the mortgage process does work. And as you know, I've got a video on that as well. Right, so the next thing is the solicitor. So when it comes to the solicitor, they're also called a conveyancer. Um, Before instructing, it's good to find out from the mortgage advisor who the lender's going to be, and then you can check if the solicitor is on that approved panel. What I mean by that is not every solicitor registers with every single lender, i.e., bank or building society. They may only register with some of them. So if you start doing a mortgage application with a lender that solicitor isn't registered with, then you obviously either need to find a new solicitor or need to find a new lender. So it can be costly. So find out what their costs are and when it has to be paid, and find out sometimes they're paying it over on your behalf. Sometimes they are actually it's their actual fees, so you need to kind of find that out. During the process, there can be delays when they're carrying out searches. So, a lot of this is when they have to go to the council to get information, but also to land registry. So, just make sure you understand all of that. And depending on your council, what are the timelines? So, that's always good to know. And then, when it comes to exchange and completion, you can do it on the same day or you can do it separately. But you should ask them, what money do I need to give you at exchange? What money do I need to give you on completion? And once you understand all of that, it really does help. So, as I said, this was just a really quick video on what you should ask an estate agent, what you should ask a mortgage advisor, and what you should ask a conveyancer slash solicitor. So, I hope it's helped. Take care.